like your backdrop. That's
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just
great.
hanging out at the half note.
So it's always fun to talk to you. I loved this movie.
Oh, thank you.
Did it again. I was just, how do you keep coming up with this stuff? This is what I want to know. You're like a font of creativity, but I know that it isn't easy. I know that Pixar makes it look easy and that it's a group effort, but you still have to come up with these ideas.
Yeah, you surround yourself with other people. I got to know a bunch of Disney's guys, like Joe Grant. Did you ever meet him? He was in his 90s when I knew him, and he worked back on Dumbo and all these things. And he and Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson, two of Disney's
All the
men,
great old men, yeah.
We were talking, and they were complaining about the state of things. And Ollie said, "Doesn't anybody have any good ideas?" And Joe Grant said, "They're all good ideas until you have to tell them to somebody else." And I was like, wow, that is so true. And really the great thing about being at Pixar is you get to have all these other people around you to help them make the ideas into something worth telling to other people.
You don't understand. I'm not Mr. Gardner. I'm
I gotta
not.
think you're nuts. I mean, that I'm nuts. Oh, how did this happen?
I fell into your body because it doesn't have a soul.
Then why am I in a cat?
I don't know.
It's been really fun watching you. I mean, I remember going up to the original Pixar and meeting you on literally the first Toy Story.
Wow.
And
wow.
you were just an animator, and you were
Yep.
showing me how it worked. You showed me the CG devices and things that you were like, it was very primitive in it compared to what it is now.
Yeah, it was state of the art back then. But you're right. Looking back at it, you're like, wow, that was so clunky.
It was, well, it was amazing.
That was back in Point Richmond, California.
That's right, Richmond.
And-
That's what I
yeah.
remember. Yeah.
You know
So
what that building is now?
What?
That same building we were in is now the state DNA evidence lab.
Oh my
where,
God.
Where like OJ's glove was sent. So crazy.
So you did Inside Out, which was extraordinary, and took this young girl on this internal journey into her forgotten parts of her mind. What do you feel like when you've delivered something that is so successful and so remarkable, and then you have to go back to the drawing board?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what started Soul, really, was that sort of existential crisis. And, talking about age and everything, I'm at a place now where I'm like, this isn't going to just go on forever the way you kind of act when you're young. And really kind of thinking, how much... is this the best use of my time? Could I be doing something more for the world, for myself? And at the heart of it, that's really what this film is kind of an investigation into what is it that we're living for? What is life all about? Why are we waking up in the morning? What's going on? What are we supposed to be doing with our lives? And of course, there's no simple answer to that. And that's kind of pompous to even think about making a movie that could answer that. But that's one of the great joys of working on these films is they take so long that you end up ruminating on this same subject for quite a long time. And it did allow me to think about some deep thoughts that I hope show up in the movie.
Well, definitely, because it seems to be about literally lost souls, and there's so many people that we know in the world, especially in our universe of show business, who feel like they have a gift or they feel like they want to accomplish something and they can't. They've got off the wrong track and they're lost. And there's something so heartening about the way that both of these main characters find themselves.
That's cool to hear. Yeah, I think it is easy to feel lost, especially if you put all your eggs in the basket of like, it's only if I become famous or hit this show or whatever. Like, if that's your measurement, your benchmark of success, you don't get to control a lot of that stuff.
What's wrong, Teach?
It's just I've been waiting on this day for my entire life. I thought I'd feel different.
Actually, it was really gratifying working with Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross on this film. The first time we showed it, Trent said, I felt very similar to your main character. And this is my story as well, so it was gratifying to know that it resonated. But he said, I always felt like if I could just play a stadium show, then I will have made it. And that somehow everything will fall into place and I will be complete and full. And after the show, he was waiting around and realized everybody else went home and he felt like the same guy. And I felt a little of that after Inside Out, and realized, well, if you pin all your hopes on these outside achievements, I don't know that that's the safest bet.
Well, the trouble with Pixar is that Pixar keeps delivering at the highest level over and over and over again. And I know that it's the brain trust. I know, but you're in charge now. That's the other thing. You're carrying this whole other job. And it's interesting to me that you're able, I mean, Lasseter did it too, that you're able to juggle both things. And I wondered how that's affected you, having to be the boss.
It's really interesting, and I'm trying to like keep a little journal because there are things that I am conscious of, that the job shifts for you. You know, the same situation, and yet you'll see it through a different lens. You know, even things like audience previews. So every one of our films since Toy Story, we have this great opportunity. We show it to an audience, and we get to hear their response. And for me as a director, my thought was always the joy and the gift of that is to sit next to somebody and listen and pay attention to their body language. And you can tell when people are with the film and when they fall out, you know. And at Pixar, then we have the joy of being able to go back and change things that didn't quite work. As in this new position, suddenly the second part of that is you have all these audience forms and you have numbers and your ratings, and as a director I was like, who cares? The thing I take away from it is sitting there with the audience. And now in this new role, I'm like, what were the scores? How does that compare to the past films? You know, like, why is that suddenly important? I don't know, but it's a new perspective, and it does bring to life, I think, you know, none of us really know what the other person's going through until you walk in their shoes.
Well, the other thing that you have is the brain trust, and you have these periodic screenings that you do, or you show what you've got, the different scenes, and you figure out how it's playing.
Right.
That's always been the richness of what you do.
Yeah, those are basically audience preview screenings, only it's an audience full of filmmakers instead of folks off the street. And they're both valuable, you know, but the advantage that a brain trust audience has is that then you can go up into the room and ask people, like, what worked for you and why, and people will throw out suggestions, things that they think would make the film better. And these are people that are busy making their own films, you know, so they're filmmakers. They understand the challenges, the things you're up against, and oftentimes have some really great ideas to throw into the mix. We learned a lot on this film from showing it to other folks.
So what kind of thing did they help you fix that was a problem?
You know, what we do is we write it, we draw them in almost like a comic book form, and then we film those along with music, dialogue, and sound effects, and then we can sit back and watch the whole movie before we animate it. So this is our way of kind of approximating the experience, the emotional experience of the film. And it was after one of these that a lot of people were like, I just don't feel like there's very much drive in the film. It feels like once the film gets going, we're just kind of marking time until the end. And somebody had the idea of doing, I think this was Angus MacLean, who's a co-director on Finding Dory. He said, what if you have like he called a charming hunter character.
This sweet.
What is it?
The count's off.
Excuse me?
There's a soul missing. The count's off.
This is where the character of Terry came about, born of that meeting. This character who just wants to make the numbers right, and she knows there's a soul missing, and she's gonna stop at nothing to make sure that the balance book comes out. You know.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so you've got the. But the writing process fascinates me because here you are. What made this an African American story? Why did that become the thing?
Yeah, and that's kind of mysterious to think about because it's, as I said, it's very personal to me. But once we arrived at, okay, there's a character who has this passion, like I do for animation. We could try Animator, but maybe that's a little. And actually, I don't know. Watching people animate is not the most thrilling thing in the world. So we thought, well, what if we shift it to musician, and specifically jazz, because it felt to us like you don't go into jazz music to get rich and famous. You do it because you have
to
a
love
genuine passion for it, you know? And so once we arrived at that decision, we thought, okay, for one, that'll be fun to watch, you know, because boy, when you see somebody who's an accomplished musician, it's like magic to watch them work. But we thought, well, if this is going to be a jazz musician, or as one of our consultants called it, black improvisational music, the character, it just felt wrong to do anything other than make the character black, reflective of that art form, one of the many things that African Americans have brought to the world. So at that point, we realized we're going to need some help, you know, because none of us who were working on the film at that point knew that experience. And so Kemp Powers, he came on initially as a writer, and just happened to be a lot of the choices we had made in the film. African-American musician, mid-40s. We wanted a character that was at a point where he was like, it's kind of getting late. You know, if this is gonna work, it better be now. So we made a lot of these choices, and then Kemp came in, and we're like, hey, guy who lived in New York, mid-40s, like he really brought a lot of real-life experience to that character and added depth and richness. Not only to that character, but the whole movie.
But you brought him on as director as well, which is a big decision.
Yeah, that kind of happened along the way, very organically again, because we realized beyond the writing, Kemp was going down and talking to animators and talking about gestures that would have been, culturally appropriate. Like when two people who know each other from way back, how do they greet each other? The sort of handshake, or things like in Joe's apartment, what artwork would he have up? You know, Kemp just started helping out in all these different areas. And so it just felt very organic, natural, and necessary that his voice be there at the table in a major way, that it was sort of becoming already.
So tell me why Jamie Foxx is your guy. He's a musician, for one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and as we looked at, you know, typically what I'll do is like think through the part and go, okay, I need somebody who can do drama, who's funny, who is either ideally a musician, but at least understands music. And so that limits your number of actors. And Jamie Foxx has all those plus more, and such a great sense of enthusiasm and energy that he brought to the part.
Hey, Curly. Hey, good to hear your voice, man. Listen, you can call me Joe now, Curly. I'm not your teacher anymore.
Oh, okay, Mr. Gardner. Hey, look, I'm the new drummer in the Dorothea Williams Quartet, and we're kicking off our tour with the show at the Half Note tonight.
Dorothea Williams? Are you kidding me? Congratulations, man. Wow. I would die a happy man if I could perform with Dorothea Williams.
Oh, well, this could be your lucky day.
One of the things I love to do is ask casting to just bring audio clips. So we'll have like a picture of our character Joe, and I'll just listen to, I don't know who these people are, the actors. And this one was like, oh, whoa, that guy looks like our drawing. Who is that? And it was Jamie Foxx. When you look at Jamie Foxx, he looks nothing like the character of Joe, but somehow his voice just fit so perfectly. It felt like it was coming out of Joe's body. I should have said we had already designed the character at this point. We do, once we record with the actors, end up rewriting quite a bit. You know, we'll go back and listen to the phrasing, the rhythms of or the words that an actor will use, and try to work that into the pacing of the writing as well.
Well, what's great about it is that this guy, how do I put this? Jamie Foxx is a kind of a strong, masculine man. And he is an artist, and he is a wonderful performer. But this part brings out all colors of his that I hadn't seen before. And I was I wouldn't have nailed him as the guy at all.
Yeah, I don't think I would have either if they had brought, like if I was just casting him based on previous films or roles that he's been in. And it required us to kind of, Joe became a little bit more cool when Jamie Foxx came in. I think we were considering him a little bit more nerdy. But I think that helped the film too, because he has to be a teacher who's actually pretty good at his job, inspiring to the kids, and is not a pushover. You know, it's tough being a middle school teacher. That's not a job I envy.
Well, and then Tina Fey, how about her? She's really, really good as
Yeah.
this lost soul 22, and she has to do so many different things. She has to be really angry and sullen and teenager-like, and she also has to sort of grow into something more interesting after that. Explain what you wanted there.
How about a librarian? They're cool.
Yes, amazing. Who wouldn't like working at a thankless job you're always in danger of losing due to budget cuts? Though I do like the idea of randomly shushing people.
Obviously, this.
Oh yeah, that's good. Meh. Meh. Meh.
I think I was reading her biography, Bossy Pants, and I can't specifically remember, but there was one part she was talking about being in middle school or junior or maybe high school, and she would stand off to the side with these other kids and just make fun of other high school students, and that's exactly what we wanted for 22. 22 feels like, you know what, I'm way above this. I know all this stuff. I don't want to go to Earth. It seems like a bunch of losers go down to Earth. I'm staying up here. It just felt like. Plus, man, she's so smart, so funny, and she does all that with this charm and appeal. So. Yeah, we were.
So it's really interesting the way you make the movie, because you have this very naturalistic world in New York, very, very, very beautiful colors, very gritty, and then you go to this fantastical other world, the beyond, and it's the style of it is so gorgeous, and nothing I can remember ever seeing before.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was a tough one because we wanted to be very visually clear that we're nowhere on Earth. This is somewhere else. And yet it needed to feel kind of approachable and nurturing and friendly. So, you know, Steve Pilcher, our art production designer, he worked tirelessly with a lot of iteration to find the elements that all kind of came together. We looked for a certain amount of mathematical precision. You'll see like even the arrangement of what look like kind of organic things like hills or grasses are very ordered. And the structures of the buildings are very clean and they're soft, all right? That there's a sort of fuzziness to things that came from doing research, talking to a bunch of different, let's see, we talked to a couple of rabbis and priests and different religious consultants from the University of UC Berkeley, trying to really dive deep into what different religious traditions tell us about what the soul is, and thereby extrapolating out where a world of souls, what does that look like?
Well, you're obviously getting into some very existential philosophical things. It's sort of like Inside Out. It's one of those cases where you got to be very heady and brainy and philosophical, but you had to bring it back to something that a mass audience, and especially children, and this has come up in a couple of my conversations. How old is the target audience for this?
47. I do think there will be. Well, we've tested it out on kids, and I think it's like everything, right? The kids pick up different things than adults do, but the one thing I'm really proud of is the way that we use our medium. It's very colorful. It's fun to watch. We have a lot of physical comedy as well as verbal comedy and all sorts of layers. So hopefully at the heart of it all, the very nugget is something pretty deep. But then it's wrapped in all these like layers of candy coating that taste really good and that are fun to look at. And so you can really kind of digest it on a number of different levels.
Yep, that's true. That's true. So what was the question of bringing this movie out? I remember every filmmaker has a moment of joy when they enter the Palais at Cannes, and that voice says, yeah. L'auteur, Pete Docter, and everybody applauds.
Yeah.
You had to give that up this year.
I did. I'm lucky. I'm very fortunate to have had the opportunity to experience that a couple times on Up and on Inside Out, and it would have been so cool to go back, but you know, nobody got to go. So I can't say I was robbed because everybody was robbed. It's
I'm
just
afraid
2020.
so. Yeah, yeah. But the movie was finished and you were all good to go?
It was ready to come out on June 19th. We were
Right.
set. Let's see. We got hit. I think we had about 7 or 8 weeks left of production. I finished right here, finaling the animation and effects, and everybody was working from their home thanks to all of our brilliant systems folks who were foresighted enough to set up these units, this Teradici units that allowed people to like carry these things home and finish work at their house with enough compute power to be able to do all the work that they needed to do. So
What's a Teradici unit?
it's it's basic. I could be wrong. My understanding is it's almost like a remote control that allows you to control the computer. So all the compute power is going on at Pixar, but I'm able to sit and operate it from my house over the internet. So
Good to know. And it's going to be interesting also how Pixar is going to be delivering more material to Disney Plus going forward. And there's a kind of a restructuring of who makes decisions about distribution and so on. And it must be a little weird.
well, actually, it's kind of miraculous in a sense because so many productions have been halted almost entirely or slowed down. For us, thanks to those Teradici boxes and all the systems folks, we're doing more now than we did last year at the same time. And there's great opportunity, again, thanks to streaming, for new voices. We can take bigger chances. We can give projects to people who have had less experience than one of these huge expensive features takes. And so it's really a great opportunity to bring a lot of new voices to the screen, try out new things, both story-wise and technical. So it's pretty exciting, actually.
Well, Kemp Powers is an example of something that a lot of people are dealing with across the industry, which is that you need more diversity.
Right.
To be able to tell these stories. And how have you been dealing with that at Pixar?
That's been challenging, and if you know anything about the history of animation, it's been a pretty homogeneous.
Very white male.
Yeah, and and this is a while ago now, but even when I was at school 30 years ago, I was a class of 45, and I think 4 of them were women. Never mind diversity. So that's changed. Since then, there is now, if you go back to CalArts, it's over 50% women. I think they've developed new ways of judging the portfolios blindly, so they're not aware of who, what, where it's coming from, and that's helping as well. It's something that I think the whole industry is working on, and it's like anything, it takes a while. I think, it was, again, going back to Frank and Ollie, they were like, it takes 10 years to learn how to be an animator. So you can't just like pluck somebody off the street and say, here, you're directing. It's not fair to them. So they need a little bit of traction first, and so it's been something we've been working on for quite a while, and I think you're going to start to see finally some results.
Yeah, but I mean, congratulations on Soul, because what really heartens me is that you guys just keep growing and you keep moving forward and you keep not looking back at what always worked before, using what you've learned, but this movie feels like a quantum leap again into something that you haven't done before. If you were to qualify what it did that you weren't supposed to be able to do, what would it be? It is more adult somehow.
Yeah. Well, from the subject matter on, so right away there you get into a lot of thorny, prickly stuff of maybe upsetting half the world's religions if you do the wrong thing. And then, a middle-aged man as the protagonist, that's very kind of not traditional animation turf. And talking about the meaning of life, I mean, that could have been horribly pompous if we didn't do it right. So there are just a lot of things that were pretty risky. But I'm really thankful to work at a place that allows for that kind of risk-taking and allows us to be wrong quite a bit along the way and correct ourselves before we have to show anybody.
Yes, that's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
We get to see the final result. Well, thank you so much, Pete. It's always
you,
a
man.
pleasure.